Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you're watching from. Welcome to a special Thursday edition of Talk Talent. I'm your host, Michael Goldberg, and I am super excited about my guest today. So I've known Jonaed Iqbal, well, I'd say for the last 7, 8 months. We were in a YouMap certification course with our good friend Kristen Sherry back in, I believe it was September, October. And from there, we just kind of hit it off because we have a lot of, we're very similar in our top five strengths. He's the CEO and founder of NoDegree.com. And we're going to talk a lot about what NoDegree does and how he helps job seekers find jobs that they're looking for, but they don't have degrees. So I'm going to bring my good friend and a guest today, Jonaed.
Hey, how
Hello.
are you?
What's happening, sir? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you. So, how are things going for you? You staying healthy, staying away from the bad things?
Yeah, no, I mean 2020, fortunately it was a good year for me. I was able to sort of be isolated, not, be safe and stuff, and I launched a virtual events business and so things have been good. And then 2021, it looks like it's going to be, that momentum still, going straight into 2021. So it's going to be interesting because I'm one of those that I have no idea what the future has in store for me.
I don't think any of us do,
Yeah.
right? So, why don't you uh, do a lot better than I did, and just give everybody kind of that elevator ride pitch about yourself, the company, what you do, what you love about doing what you do, and we'll kick things off that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, you kind of gave a good introduction, right? I help people without college degrees find jobs. They're a demographic that's sort of forgotten about, and they're a demographic that has a stigma attached to it. Because anytime you say, oh, someone's educated, they're like, where'd they go to school, right? But the fact is, education comes in many forms, and especially in this day and age, it's so much more accessible than it was, right? If you wanted to learn something in the 90s, you didn't have online courses, right? You just only had textbooks and stuff. And the fact is, school isn't for everyone, right? Some people just don't learn best in a classroom environment. Some people need experience. Some people have a different pace that they want to learn at, and that's okay. So that's really what I'm about. Just the fact that not everyone can go to college due to monetary reasons, personal reasons, life situations. There's so many reasons why someone can go to college that has nothing to do with their ability to do hard work or their intelligence level.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good starting point. And when you look at that, I mean, and I know you and I have had discussions about this, and it'll be interesting to see what some of our audience members say. But when I look at the college degree nowadays, I kind of see it as a high school. You graduated high school,
Yeah.
right? I don't see I don't see it's as important as it was maybe 15 to 20 years ago,
Yeah, no,
right?
I mean it's definitely not. Like 15 to 20 years ago, it was so much cheaper and the degree went so much farther. Oh, someone says it's hard to hear.
Yeah, hard to hear, so you might want to
Okay.
speak up.
Okay, so now it should be better. Let me know if that's better, Jason.
Sounds a little bit better.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things that it's like the internet has changed things, right? And the fact that we could have video cameras on our phones, right? Now anybody can record a course and you can learn in Zoom calls. You just have to be proactive. Like just because you don't go to college does like if you don't go to college, you have to be proactive. You have to make it up somehow. And you know, work on your networking skills and your communication skills. Those are some things you just don't learn well in college.
And really, you don't have to take like use we'll just use Coursera as
Yeah.
one of those course providers. Hell, you can get on YouTube and learn stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you want to be a video producer, I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of videos are there about video production
Yeah.
and audio production and, um, doing things? I mean, heck, we're recording this on YouTube, so someone could, replay this on YouTube, and that's the beauty of the internet, right?
Yeah.
But then the people will argue Well, once they get into management, that's where they really need the degree. And I'm like, well, do they? If they've got the people management skills, if they've got the technical skills and some of the true characteristics of leadership, they're going to be fine. Now, when you get into the VP role, that's when waters get a little hazy.
Yeah,
But
and then the other
that's
thing is, it's like, what? How do you learn management in college?
you don't. It's all
It's like
theory.
that.
It's
I'll
all
ask.
theory, right?
It's all theory, and then I don't know. I like I've oftentimes if someone has an MBA, they often make a terrible manager. Like I've known people like I've had people who I worked with who had MBAs and they were terrible at managing. Right? They cause people to leave and all that. And if you look at it, like I manage a decent amount of people, and it's not because I learned it in college. It's just I read a lot of books. I read a lot of things on forums. I have mentors. I get feedback, and look, I'm not saying you can't be a good manager because you went to college, but the fact is, that's not what you learn. Management is all people skills, and people skills is more about emotional intelligence, and that's more that you learn about through life.
And by doing the job. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, I graduated college. I've got an MBA, but I didn't know anything about. I didn't take. I wasn't. I was a psych major,
yeah,
right, at the University of Georgia. And so when I graduated, I went and worked for Marriott, and I started. I was hell. You'll laugh at this. I was making $650 an hour, front desk, college graduate. All my friends were making 30 to 40,000. I'm making like
yeah,
12 to 13,000, living in a cave of an apartment, no windows. I mean, but I learned as because I grew pretty quickly in the Marriott ranks from
yeah,
frontline associate all the way to front desk supervisor, then to a front desk manager, and it's trial by fire.
yeah,
And I think it goes. Emotional intelligence wasn't born then. I'll put it that
yeah,
way. But you learned how to manage people. You made mistakes. You said things that you probably made people feel terrible, but then along the way you grew, and that is so to me this that is so much more important than a piece of parchment.
yeah. And the fact is, your education never stops, right? And if your education stops because you just graduated, then your life is gonna suck because there's so much more to learn, so much more to learn, and you
Yeah.
should always be learning in some capacity.
Yeah, so Rob Lockhart, some of the worst managers I've worked with don't have people skills.
Yeah,
Same, and Jason Hopper agrees, and hello, I'll just say hello to some people here.
yeah.
Panguru, hello. Chris Hadley said that this topic resonates. It speaks to his soul, and so what is it? So walk me through your process when someone a job seeker, I would assume, comes to you and says, Jonaed, I need some help. I'm just nobody's taking me, whether it's degree required or not. Walk everybody through your kind of your
So
process with
first,
them.
I ask them what they're looking for and what have they done, right? Because if someone says, "Yeah, I've only applied to like 10 jobs," I'm like, "Well, that's your first problem." Right? There is a numbers aspect that you have to be a little more strategic. That you can't apply to just 10 jobs, especially in this competitive marketplace. Then I'll kind of look at their resume. I'll be like, what have you been applying with? Right? And then I'll kind of look at that kind of scan. And immediately, when everyone says they struggle, I look at the resume and I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, very obvious. And I'll say, look, it's your resume. Simple as that. And the thing is, even if you don't have a perfect resume, even making some of the right tweaks just increases your chances by like 3 to 4x. Now it's like you apply to 20 jobs, you actually get one or two callbacks. So that's
It's
that.
like
And then
sales. It's
yeah,
like sales.
sales. And then the other thing is, now what kind of sets me apart and makes me a little different is that I spend between 3 to 6 hours with someone on their resume. A lot of resume writers use a questionnaire model. I'm not a big fan of that just because it's like I can't know you through 30 questions. And the fact is I can't give you a 300 list questionnaire for you to answer because a lot of times I'll ask you a question and then I have to ask the right follow-up question and then ask the right follow-up question to that to get the right answer out of you to get one line on your resume. So I teach people how to write their resume while I write it in front of them, because what happens is people will get these resumes and they won't know how it was constructed. So they have no idea how to edit it, what's important, what's not important. And then the other thing I really focus on is the job search strategy, because job searching is a skill, right? It's not just applying. It's about being strategic in how you apply. Does it make sense to spend 20 minutes on your cover letters, or are you better off spending that time networking? Are you better off time, so you have to find the right balance of everything, that you want to spend X amount of time on this, X amount of time on that. And then the other thing is you also have to make personal choices. Like, hey, you know what? This is my dream job. I do want to spend 20 minutes on this cover letter because it's my dream job, or I'm getting a referral. So it's about being strategic. And I think if you're more strategic, if your resume is better and sort of tailored to these type of roles, and it presents it in a simple but effective manner. Like, a lot of people just make it, you don't necessarily want to fluff up your resume, but you want it to be simple and clear. Like, they look at it, oh, Michael has placed 20 candidates, has brought in this much revenue, has brought in that. That's really what they care about.
Absolutely. They've got to have um, one of the things. So, and I did career coaching last year, not
Yeah.
really doing it that much this year, but um, I was talking with somebody yesterday, and you know, they're they they know what needs to be done, but where I start to, where I know you probably really help people are those that are coming to you that, the job search, their last job search was 10 plus years ago,
Yeah, I get those.
and it's so different
Yeah.
than it was even from 5 years ago. It's so different. But the
Even
one
from
thing,
last year.
right, right. So the one thing that remains constant though is networking.
Yeah. All time.
So how do you what's your kind of your prescription for networking?
Well, first I have to feel them out to figure out what are they, introverted, extroverted, what their goals are. And then I come up with creative solutions on who they need to network with. Like, hey, here's the people you need to network with. I have like a video that's like an hour and a half on networking. But what I tell people in networking is, how much can you give? And I tell people to give something that's low cost to you and high value to someone else. And what does that mean? If you gave everyone $500 when you networked, you'd be memorable and you'd probably, it lead to a lot of good things, except you'd be broke after like the fifth person, right? So
Right.
it's not sustainable. But in certain situations, it does make sense to do that, right? So there, you can give, high value, high cost to you. And in one or two specific situations, it does make sense to do that, right? Like, if I could pay $500 to get an hour with Bill Gates, 100% no brainer, right? Now there's something that's maybe medium cost, and you have to really think about in which context does it make sense. But for most people, you have to give low cost and high value. So what does that mean? So something that's, you have knowledge you have already acquired, maybe something you can easily give. Like, for example, what do I give that's high value, low cost? If someone needs help on networking, I say, hey, look at this YouTube video. It takes me 2 seconds to send. I've already made it. Good. If someone needs help preparing for an interview but they can't pay me, I say, hey, go listen to this episode of the podcast, How to Prepare for an Interview. So just think of, a lot of times people don't realize, like, you have a lot of skills. Oh, you're good in math? Go, if you want to network with someone, offer to tutor their kids, in math. They'll remember you. So, for one thing I do is, anybody who comes to New York City, I say, hey, I'll pick you up from the airport, right? If I like you and all that stuff. And people are like, wow. For me, it's like, gas money is only a few bucks. My car doesn't use that much gas, and I get to actually spend time with them. Again, so, but to someone else, it's like high value. They don't have to worry about the Uber. They don't have to worry about that. So you got to think about networking is figuring out what you give, because look, not everyone's gonna give back, but it just comes around in so many ways. Like, you're memorable, you don't know, and the fact is, you may not get something back right away, but you'll get something back 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. Like, there are people who, I've helped them years ago, and now they're kind of saying, "Hey, I have something for you. I have a referral." And I totally forgot about them.
Yeah. And the one thing that I loved It's the first sentence in your LinkedIn profile. And if you want to connect with Jonaed, definitely check out his LinkedIn profile and just hit the connect and tell him you saw it here on the Talk Talent Show, of course,
Yeah.
where your first sentence is "Giving is my fuel," and I'm a giver as well. And you and I have talked about this when we were setting up the date and time to have this live conversation. It's it's something that I don't know if people are doing enough.
Yeah,
They're
they're not.
happy to they're happy to give if you give them money.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I see it all the time. It's just you're not giving. And I see a lot of people who struggle in the job search. It's like, look, if you give and you give strategically, because also there's a limit to how much you should give in the sense of don't give so much that you have nothing left to give, right? Don't give to the point where it's so detrimental to you. But you're going to see the more you give, the more you get. And if you have that mentality and that mindset, people are more willing to give to you. And it's not like they could just feel something about you. And then the thing is, it changes how you interact with people. You go into interaction like, how can I help this person? And sometimes giving is just, hey, Michael, wow, you need help in this area? I know someone you should talk to. That's it. That's already giving. Giving is just about solving someone's problem, making their life easier in some capacity. Even a little easier is more than enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know is there and is it hard as a giver? And I know it's hard for me, but
Yeah.
to know when to stop because you can give and give and give and
Oh,
give and
that's
give.
hard for me. That's hard for me. And the thing is, I actually have filters depending on how I give because I get a lot of job
What do you mean
seekers.
by that? What do you mean
So
by
I
that?
get a lot of job seekers, right? And look, I feel bad. Not everyone has, you know how it is. Not everyone has like $300 to $500 to drop on a resume.
Right.
And but I always make sure that I do like one resume for free. Typically, it's like if a connection is like, hey, I know this really good guy who's struggling. I'll spend some time like 1 to 2 hour, whatever. I'll spend extra. I'll set aside time because I know how it was. I've gotten a lot of people who helped me, so I that's my way of giving back. Now the thing is, you also don't want to give your time to someone who's not serious because I've done resumes for people, and the fact is, like, I can do a resume for you, but if you don't follow my advice, if you're not out there applying, it's sort of useless. It's just there, right? I can't go apply for you. So, and there are people who I've done resumes for who have not used it and who have not even valued it, right? Sometimes just the fact that the value that someone has for you, that the appreciation is sometimes more than enough. So now I'll get jobs. Can you be my mentor? Can you be this, right? And the fact is, it's like I say no because I look at have they interacted with me, have they engaged with me, have they engaged with my friends, right? If they supported my friends as a capacity, I'll go out of my way for them. And straight up, like you'll get a lot of people of all ages, and I'll kind of say, hey, did you look at my podcast? Did you look at this? Right? It's all free advice. And if they're like, no, I'm gonna be like, well, I have a podcast episode which goes over that. Like the fact, like you should know that it's in my headline. Like if I'm gonna go ask something for someone, I'm gonna look at their headline and read their LinkedIn bio, and that's the minimum. And I'll tell you, like 99% of people who ask for help don't even do that. So, because you can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves. I found that the best people to help are people who seriously want to help themselves because then they have a fire and you're the gasoline on it. But if there's no fire, right, no matter how much gasoline I pour on them, it's not going anywhere, right? They need that spark for themselves.
Well, and that's right. So, I mean, for our job seekers that are listening, and I encountered the same thing. I had a few clients that were like that, and I had taken the time to put together this workbook,
Yeah.
and which you've seen,
Yeah.
and you know, we'd have a weekly meeting. They'd come to me, and they hadn't done it, and I'm like, "Well, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And you're just like, "Well, okay, we can. I'm happy to go through this, but really, there's no need for us to be meeting if you're not doing the work,
No, 100%.
because I can't help you if you can't help yourself."
Yeah, because you're not going to go interview for them, right? They got to go interview for themselves.
Yeah, I can't take the test for you, as they say, and I think that's there's this misconception, and I don't know if you get these kind of messages on LinkedIn, but I do too. Is, hey, I need you to help me find a job.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Glad you think that I've got 100.
Yeah.
You're putting your trust in me, and I appreciate that. But take a look at my profile. It's while I do some recruiting
Yeah.
for some clients, it's not the focus
Yeah.
of what I do.
And it's work too. It's not like, look, if I could get a job with just a click of a button, I'd do it, right? But the fact is, it's work. I got to spend time, and and it's time taken away from my business and my other things that I want to do. And sometimes I just want to watch Netflix, right? So it's like it's that too, right? So people have to be and that's very true. Human is when you get something for free, it isn't as valued, right? But I will say that there have been resumes I've done for free, and people have been super appreciated. All right, they're like, wow, thank you, you changed my life.
Yeah, just because you do it for free doesn't mean you're going to do it, part of the
Yeah,
French half-ass, right?
yeah,
Because that's your reputation on the line.
yeah,
And I'm the same. I'm the same way, though I don't do resumes. So I always outsource that to my friend Fanchon
yeah.
Henneberger, who does
Nice.
great stuff, and certainly would be glad to forward anybody to you as well, because I know she has a full-time job now. But so that was Carl Bernard that showed up with this question.
Yeah,
So thank you, Carl. Um, uh, you know, Jason said yes, there has to be some progress, and Chandra agrees. So you know, when you're working, so the other half of your business is providing candidates to companies who will consider candidates without degrees. Is that correct?
or convincing companies to at least consider them.
So how do you go about and do that?
So let's say you're hiring, right, and you have a degree requirement. I'll ask you, I'll ask you why do you have the requirement, and they'll go into, oh, if someone puts in the investment or blah blah blah, and I'll be like, if someone can do the job and they have the experience, why does it matter? And people don't have a proper counter for that. And that's, the fact is, give me a proper counter. A lot of times, and the reason I ask these questions in a lot of things, because your answer shouldn't be, hey, we're the organization and we make the rules. That's a bad answer. Yes, you have the right to make the rules. Like, I see it all the time. It's like, hey, why do you have this policy? Oh, well, we're paying you and therefore you got to do it. And it's like, don't have policy because of that. Because people build resentment. If you build policy, be like, hey, you got to make sure you come in looking a certain way because we have clients and we may lose business. People will respect that. But then it's like, hey, make sure you come in a certain way because we make the rules and we pay you, right? Then it's like people question why. It's like people don't mind rules as long as they make sense. People don't mind standards. People don't mind any of that. So it's me telling them, like, look, where do they like? If someone spent 20 years in college, would you hire them for this job? No, I didn't experience. So experience is more important. And the fact is, if they've demonstrated that they've done the job, why does it matter? And then certain industries, some of the best marketers don't have degrees. A lot of the best salesmen don't have degrees. The fact is like you don't learn some of these things in college. You learn by doing. And the fact is, you want someone to get the job done. That's why you're hiring.
Yeah. So what happens when they go, well, it's for promotability. Most of our management positions, director level and such, require. How do you come
And I'll
back
be
on
like,
that
well,
one?
they've managed people in the past. I don't see what the issue is.
Right.
And I'll say
Regardless.
go. I'll say go interview them, check out their competency. And it's funny. A lot of these tech companies, the CEOs don't have degrees. So you're telling me the manager needs a degree, but the CEO who runs the company, who founded it, who did things that 99% of people in the organization can't do. It's just one of those things. And I'm not saying hire someone without a degree. I'm saying consider them if they're competent enough and they showcase the skill set. That's it.
It'd be interesting to see the number of people that, if there's a degree requirement at Facebook, let's
Yeah,
just everybody knows that he didn't
yeah,
Zuckerberg didn't finish Harvard,
yeah,
um, but yet because he wasn't enjoying school, he
yeah.
didn't think it was necessary. But
And it wasn't necessary.
and he was brilliant.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there's all kind of factors,
yeah,
but still, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but certainly on Clubhouse and then in other conversations, I know I talked about it last week with Krista Kurt uh, on my show. Was it boils down to the characteristics.
Yeah.
You can have all the experience in the world, but if you don't have the emotional intelligence, you don't have the communication, you don't have the creative, you don't have and I'm talking experience. I'm talking about in your
Yeah.
DNA, in
Yeah.
your DNA, that left right brain thing,
Yeah.
right? That's what to me is more important than having all the check boxes of technical skill sets.
No, I think it's so important because the fact is you work with people. People have emotions, people have lives. Understanding people goes a long way. Like I manage a decent amount of people for my virtual events company, and the fact is like some of them say I'm the best manager that they have ever had. And you know why? I care about their future and I'm invested in them and I'll have honest conversation with them. And it's simple, but it's hard for a lot of people to do, right? Because a lot of times they look at their employees as if they own them, and it's most people rule with the I own the company and that's it. I make the rules, but it's like just care about them. Try to make their job as easy as possible for them. Don't go into I'm paying you, therefore this. Go into hey, this is a job. I know you may not stay forever, and I don't expect that, but I'm gonna make sure as long as you stay here that I can make it the best environment as possible. And you're gonna see that that's so much more important than money. And if you pay them well too, that's like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I love what Jason said here. As long as they can innovate, that's all I care about.
Yeah, and the fact
They,
is, innovation is there's no innovation is all about creativity.
and it's priceless
Yeah,
because it's bringing new ideas to the table that no one ever thought. I mean, who would have thought that Richard Branson and Elon Musk are, for the people that can afford it, are going to send people into space so they can check
yeah.
out space
And
for.
Richard Branson doesn't have a degree. He was dyslexic. He did
Yep.
terrible in school,
Yep.
and I think the person said that you're either gonna. I think his counselor or some headmaster said that he's either gonna end up in prison or like super rich. So yeah,
I think it worked out for him, don't
yeah,
you
it
think?
worked out. Yeah, I think so.
So, when you, how do you how do you when you're talking with your companies,
Yeah.
what's the success, what is your success rate, if you don't mind me asking, getting convincing them to take a look at the candidates that don't have degrees?
Yeah, I would say about like 90%, you
Wow.
know,
And
and
what kind of positions are these that you're
a
trying to get
lot
for
of
these?
sales, marketing, these tech roles. I don't go for the science roles. Um, business, I kind of, you know why it's high? It's because in these industries, they've already seen people who've succeeded and stuff, and it's a culture too. Culture plays a big factor. So it's not that I'm great at convincing people. It's that these people are. I can convince someone that's open to the idea. I can't convince someone who's not open to the idea because they're closed and they're set in their ways. And even if I could give them the best argument, it goes back to the UMAP. I could figure out that there's something in the UMAP that they're like, no, well, no, this is how it should be done. I got the degree. They're not as forward thinking and they're not as innovative. They're just like, hey, these are the rules. These are the company could set the rules and that's it. And those people you just can't convince, right? Because
Hmm.
they're just molded to follow rules and not question anything.
I.e., they're robots.
They're robots, yeah,
Yeah. So, it's interesting as they go through the interview process. I think honestly, because information is at our fingertips on several different types of devices, that really that bachelor's degree required should be just moved to either preferred
yeah,
or or put or like I said, put the characteristics on there.
yeah,
Yeah, if you wanted to find some years of true technical experience, totally, you should
yeah,
totally do that.
yeah. And
But oh, go ahead.
I think certification should be I think there should be alternative ways for every job, right? That look, I'm a big fan. Like my mission is if I could get lawyers, practicing without the law degree, and I'll tell you why. If they can pass the bar without going to law school, they're probably more competent than people who went to law school, right? So I think there should be other ways that if there's an exam or if there's a way to judge them, like if someone could skip med school, I mean, they have to take the lab portions and stuff. But if they could skip med school and pass the boards, why shouldn't they be able to sort of start residency, right?
Right.
Because and if you want to counter and say no because of XYZ, then why is the board the defining factor? Then
Same for
if you,
law degrees.
yeah, so if something is a defining factor and you're like, no, they have to go to law school and this, then the this isn't that important, right? It's just so I'm a big fan of, look, if there should be alter either through experience, through shadowing, through other ways. I think there should be, and maybe
I,
it yeah,
I think if let's go back to the medical school example,
yeah,
because not only do you have to go through 4 years of med school,
yeah,
then you take the boards,
yeah,
then you go through like what, 8 to 10
res
years of residency.
yeah,
Why not go residency first and then the boards, or say, hey,
yeah,
you've done the hands-on in different departments. You know where you want to go and what you want to focus on. You're going to get to experience that residency at one, maybe two hospitals,
yeah,
but you put them in the necessary. You put them in an ER situation, so they really understand. Hey,
yeah,
the when things happen, what it's like to deal with chaos and pressure. You give them that hands-on experience. Look at us rewriting medical education.
yeah. And
Um,
the current model, the sad thing is, sometimes by the time someone's in residency, even if they hate the job, they have no choice. They've paid hundreds of thousands in debt. They spent so much time. This is what they did for 10 years, and they don't have a lot of job options after, because if they don't finish, it's like, what are you going to do with your biology degree? What are you going to do with the med school degree but not finishing, right? Or it just ends up being pretty hard. Like, I've seen it all the time that, I just think things need to be really redefined, because until people actually work a job, they don't know what it is. Like, kids have no idea. They just have no idea. They watch whatever they see on TV. That's all they know, but they don't realize what goes on behind the scenes.
it's interesting. So um, I've got a son in law school
Yeah,
up your way at Columbia, um, uh, uh, but I've got a niece and a nephew that received their law degree from top institutions, and they don't really like their job.
that sucks.
Because why? Because they're doing grunt work.
Yeah,
Now, and my son saw it before he went into law school. He would hear my
yeah,
niece really complaining about, well, they just had me doing research and grunt work. But he has chosen to focus on something completely different. Once he gets his law degree, he's going to go and work for um, he's not going to be a free attorney, but but he's doing more social justice,
I love that.
and right, and so he's taking his passion and putting it into organizations that could use his help instead of going through a mega law firm.
Yeah,
He doesn't want to go work for a mega firm. His internship this summer is with a nonprofit,
nice.
right? And he'll be and he'll stay in the city. So I think that's all a part of it, but it really is about knowing what you're passionate about, and
Yeah,
whether you have a degree, an MBA,
passion
you're
always wins.
right,
Passion
law
always
degree,
wins.
passion always wins. I love that,
Yeah, like if you go into a room, right, and you have a bunch of people, the passionate person lights up the room.
right? Because they bring the energy
Yeah,
and they know. So, um, can you see that passion when you're talking to people?
of course. You ask them, and my job as the resume writer is to figure out what their passions are,
Hmm.
because and the UMAP, thankfully, like anybody who read that book, Kristen Sherry, the UMAP really helps you understand like what their passion may be or why they're passionate about certain things. Because when you ask them like what they like in their job, then I tell them, hey, look, based on your UMAP and based on what you say, you need a job that focuses on this, because if you don't get that from your job, you're just going to be miserable in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we wrap up the show here, what anything big on the horizons for you that you've got coming up that you want to promote?
No, I mean just the podcast. Check out the No Degree podcast on nodegree.fm. It's on your favorite platform. I'm really focus on that. And the thing is, I have no ads, just straight stories of different people. I have professional fighters, I have salespeople, I have marketing people, brand, all types of people, and and it's I send people to that because there's so many stories, and you get to learn a lot.
So look at this. Remember this? She had to pay 68K for an MBA, but
And that's
little.
cheap compared to some of the prices I've seen.
68. Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not even the professors who are getting rich. It's one thing if the professors are, they're not even getting paid that much.
No, and they bust, and they're the ones doing all the theoretical instruction. So thanks everybody for tuning in today. So Sabrina, Carl, Jason, Chandra, seeing if I'm missing anybody here. Rob, thanks so much for tuning in. Definitely, if you are looking to whether you have a degree or not, I assume that you will talk to folks
Yeah, I talk
if
to
they need
folks.
that help, right? It doesn't.
I did a
It,
PhD's resume and a dentist resumes recently. I did lawyer resumes and all that.
there you go. So it's NoDegree.com, correct?
Yeah, nodegree.com.
Well, hey, we certainly appreciate you being on the show today. And so, by the way, just someone had asked what type of size companies do you partner with, and you said the smaller to mid-size, right?
Yeah, just because they're more open, it's easier, right? The larger companies you tend to have, a lot more credit, just background and stuff. But I can
Hmm.
do it for a larger company because I place people into Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft because I've done their resumes, so I know exactly how to find people for these roles, right? So that's in the future.
Absolutely. Well, Jonaed, it goes by fast, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
It does, and I can't. I appreciate you, my friend, and I know that there'll be much more continued conversations here, and everybody needs to reach out to Junaid. He is a giver, and he will help you. And so again, find him on LinkedIn. Go to nodegree.com. And until we'll be back on Tuesday at our regularly scheduled time. That's 12:15 Eastern, 11:15 Central. Thanks for joining us. Hope everybody stay safe, get vaccinated, and have a great rest of your week and weekend.
All right.
So, we'll give them the Queen's wave here as we head out and end the
All right.
broadcast here.